Monday, January 18th, 2021. I'm Dan Ball, and this is Real America. Straight ahead on the program tonight, the left have stepped up their effort to completely cancel conservative voices. First, it was the President of the United States, then conservative influencers on social media platforms, and of course, conservative apps like Parler. Now they're setting their sights on news networks like One America News. Plus, President-elect Joseph Biden says within the first few days of his administration, he plans to undo several executive orders by President Trump that put America first. What does that mean? Seems like we're heading right back to business as usual in the swamp. And Vernon Jones will join us to discuss Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy and why he just joined the party of Lincoln. All those stories and more right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining Real America tonight, and thank you for trusting us with your time, folks. I truly appreciate it. Well, things are now officially winding down for the Trump-Biden administration with just 2 days left in office. We're told the president spent the weekend looking into another round of pardons and was busy conducting any official final administration business before Wednesday's inauguration of former Vice President Joe Biden. We do know the president plans a big departure, and he has said he will not attend Biden's inauguration. Also over the weekend, Vice President Mike Pence made his final trip as VP to New York Army base Fort Drum to say goodbye to the troops.
It's been a special privilege to serve all of you and men and women like you who have met all over this country and all over the world wearing the uniform of the armed forces of the United States.
Well, speaking of a Biden-Harris administration, we all knew this was coming, folks. President-elect Biden will begin undoing President Trump's America First policies within the first couple days that he steps into the Oval Office. We're told that during the first 10 days, Biden claims he will rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. President Trump's travel ban of 13 majority Muslim and African nations, he will undo that. Signing executive orders on equality and communities of color, and prioritize climate change, he says. Now also within the first 100 days, Biden claims he'll ensure face masks are mandated on any federal property, also on all planes, trains, and any public transit systems. Plus, he says that more than 100 million Americans will get vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. Those are all promises he says he plans to do. Some you probably disagree with, I would assume. I do as well. President-elect Biden on the record stating that he'll grant citizenship to millions and millions of migrants within the first few days. Also, get this, yesterday, thousands upon thousands crashed and clashed with Guatemalan forces as they are heading from different countries in South America to our southern border. New presidency, here they come. We're a nation built of immigrants, as we should be, but we also are a nation of laws. Didn't we hear that from President Clinton, President Obama, President Bush? Pretty sure we did. Guess it doesn't matter with this new president. Meanwhile, Democrats hoping to impeach the president. Many amid their efforts are beyond what happened in Capitol Hill. Let's be real. This is politics, politics, politics on why they want to impeach the president. And you got good old AOC flat out admitting in an interview and with her colleagues that she wants President Trump to never, ever, ever, ever be able to run for office again. These are her words, since she sounds like a little Valley Girl bartender, which is pretty much what she is or was. But don't believe me. Here's her words.
To removal, we're also talking about complete barring of the president, or rather of Donald Trump, from running for office ever again.
Yeah, so it's not so much about you guys claiming that his speech incited the attack on Capitol Hill. That's what you're claiming. It's you just don't want him around politics anymore, so that's why you're moving forward with it. Thanks for letting us know where you stood, AOC. We kind of knew. Democrat West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin proposed using the 14th Amendment, listen to this, to expel Republican lawmakers who simply objected to the Electoral College certification. That's right, they were standing up for election integrity. Remember, folks? To get to the bottom of things? In an interview with PBS, Senator Manchin claiming that it should absolutely be considered after the incident on the Hill and the president's rhetoric. The senator added he tried to convince Republican Senator Josh Hawley not to object, but he says that Hawley claimed to him and Senator Cruz would stand by the integrity of objecting to the election results. And that's their right. They were following the Constitution. If you think something stinks in Denmark, you speak up. And so you had a handful of senators, a lot of House Republicans, who stood up and said, we want election integrity. We don't think the vote was accurate. Now you want to throw them out of office for that, for simply posing the question and objecting to something. Doesn't sound like the America I grew up in. Democrat leaders from North Carolina are calling for freshman Congressman Madison Cawthorn's removal. There's another one, herself. Yeah, because that's the way our government should work. I don't like what you said. I will throw you out. Is this the playground in middle school or kindergarten or what? Wow. My first guest tonight, the president for limited government. And man, are we going to need him over the next 4 years, because I have a feeling the federal government's going to get bigger and fatter than ever before. Rick Manning, welcome back to the show. Rick, how are you,
Thanks
sir?
for having me, Dan. I'm doing great, Dan. It's good as you can be 2 days out from one of the worst days will be in my life is January 20, 2021.
Yeah. And so you heard all these stories I just read right before your intro here, Rick. You see the theme that's going on now with these Democrats. We silenced the president, got away with it. We're silencing social media influencers that are conservative, got away with it. We're silencing Parler, trying to take down other platforms, got away with it so far. Now they're coming after One America News and conservative news networks, trying to get us kicked off of Dish and direct and cable carriers. And now, one step further, let's just have our speaker throw out Republicans that we didn't like, that said bad things, that hurt our feelings, and call them seditious. Are you kidding me? When's this going to end, Rick, and will it?
Well, and when the American people say they've had enough of it, and I mean that in a peaceful way.
Right.
So in case they missed that point, but it's this is a threat that they've been planning for. This is something they've been kind of laying the groundwork for. The attack on broadcast media has been persistent for years, and the reason it has been persistent is because they don't control it. It's the one place where they don't control the narrative, and as a result, they want to shut it down. And the irony here is CNN, which has lost money hand over fist for the last 4 to 6 years, which is owned by AT&T, by the way, is urging DirecTV, which is also owned by AT&T, and urging cable networks, including Time Warner, which is also owned by AT&T, to go ahead and take down networks like OAN. Seems to me that any of your viewers who happen to be subscribed and using the mobile services of AT&T might want to let AT&T know that this is unacceptable and that they're going to withhold. They're no longer going to be customers of AT&T if they pursue this path, if they don't shut down CNN's hateful rhetoric and attempting to shut down conservative thought.
Yeah. And for CNN, I watched an interview this weekend, which we're going to discuss at the end of the program here in my Get Real, with my favorite pal. He loves us. I think he's got a bit of a crush. Brian Stetler over at CNN. He absolutely loves OAN. But I was watching an interview, and he was speaking with a gentleman who used to be the chief security officer at Facebook. And he literally was calling for us, Newsmax, Fox, whatever, to be taken off cable carriers, Dish and Direct. And I'm going, I don't understand what you're talking about. And they said, because we, and Brian was right there with him, because we tell lies, we have conspiracy theories, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, so CNN's the place for facts. And then Jake Tapper on his weekend show, same thing. Well, yeah, those networks have to go because they lie. We only use facts here at CNN. Like the fact that you didn't even cover the Biden laptop and all the scandal connecting Ukraine and China to our incoming president. Yeah, that wasn't a lie or a cover-up or a non-even. You didn't cover a Russian hoax on our current president for like 3 years, but they always tell the truth at CNN, Rick.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't know the truth if it was standing right in front of them. They're a lot like Pontius Pilate, not recognizing Jesus as the truth. But having said that, one of the things, we sit there, we recognize, we see what's happening. Individuals have to begin to be smart. And your viewers need to do things like directly connect with organizations they want to get information from. They need to connect with OAN and be able to access streaming services and the like in the event. So we still have a viable media if they start taking these kind of actions. And quite honestly, with a group like Americans for Limited Government, go to getliberty.org, sign up, subscribe for our website, and you'll be getting information on a daily basis, just like Dan does. So it seems to me that one of the things we have to do here is we have to stand firm against this because it's totalitarianism at its worst. But we also have to prepare in the event that they take these kind of actions so we can have a communications network that allows us to have free thought in a world that's trying to stop that from occurring. And it's up to every individual to take the steps necessary to ensure that you have access to truthful information, not that's fed to you by CNN and others.
Yeah, no kidding. And we've got to learn as conservatives to get on the offense. Like you were just saying, we cannot be always on the defense going, oh, what did the left just do to our voices? Now we're going to be angry, try to fight back peacefully. Got to throw that out there. I don't want anybody trying to dox and cancel me that I'm promoting violence. I never would. But we've got to fight back. But like you said, we have to be offensive, which means we have to be on the offense saying, okay, here's our platform. Here's what we're going to subscribe to. Here's what we're going to send letters, call, let AT&T know. Don't take OAN. Don't take these other ones off of my cable, off of my satellite. We've got to be proactive in keeping our voices out there in front of the American people, not just defending them as they're taking it away from us, which is what we're
Absolutely.
right in the middle of. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the defense of liberty is always going to be difficult because totalitarian impulses have always existed. But the fact is, we've been created for a time such as this. This is the battle of our generation to defend liberty. And the more oppression occurs, the more people will understand exactly what we're talking about. So rather than look at this as a dire time, look at this as an opportunity to stand up for the rights that we've been given by God, to stand up for what this country actually stands for, and have it as an opportunity to explain that to your kids who may not have understood, explain that to your grandkids who may not have understood. Because right now, the very fact that these people are talking about trying to wipe out entire networks based upon really their own, because they're the opposition to the point of view they want to have heard, that I think everyone understands what that is. And in doing so, they are exposing themselves for who they are. And America rejects what CNN was standing for and what was being proposed on their air.
Rick, I like what you said there a second ago about being positive, because I think a lot of folks are going to get in a slump right now, especially after the inauguration, that are conservatives. They're going to go, they feel defeated. The election, whichever way you believe, our guy didn't win. Now stamping out the voices, now looking at these American First policies going to be overturned by the incoming president. I could feel a lot of folks out there, Rick, are probably going, what can I do? And just feel defeated. But let's try and turn it into a positive, that we all need to be patriots to stick up for our freedoms, our liberties, free speech, and go out with that positive voice that you've got to keep speaking up. Don't feel defeated. Don't go negative. Rick Manning, you told him how to get a hold of you. He's the president for Americans for Limited Government. And as I said, we're going to need folks like you, Rick, limited government, because it already sounds like we're heading right back to the old days of the swamp, same business as usual crap come Wednesday.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to win, and we hope we can need a lot of other hands on the oars. So get in touch with us, and we will put you to work.
All right, Rick, thank you so much. Stay safe. See you soon.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep. Today, we honor and remember the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. When we return, Vernon Jones, former Democrat from Georgia, will join us to discuss why he just walked away from the Democrat Party after years and joined the party of Lincoln. Plus, we'll get his take on MLK's legacy.
One American News Network.
Welcome back. Well, my next guest has been a lifelong Democrat, but just recently announced that he's switching parties. Former Georgia Representative Vernon Jones now joining me on this Martin Luther King Jr. Day to discuss not only MLK's legacy, but also what's happening with the Republican Party right now and this great divide between Americans. Vernon, thank you for coming back on the program. How are you, sir?
I'm thankful to be back on your program, enjoying this day, Martin Luther King's birthday, and thank you guys for celebrating as well.
Yeah, let's start off with, because it's been so much negative news, right? Over the last how many weeks, months? I mean, everywhere you look, you turn, It's all division, division. So maybe let's start out this interview with a little bit of unity and messaging from MLK. How do you think his message, Vernon, from back then about true unity and freedoms for all would translate into today when it comes to the left and their movement and the BLM movement versus how MLK was doing it back then?
Well, first of all, we are a divided country right now, and we cannot ignore that. But let's look at the foundation that Dr. King laid for us. Let's look at what we have in common. Let's bridge that gap. People want jobs. People want to get past the COVID. People want to be able to get their kids back in school. This has been taxing. This has been stressful. People also want election integrity. Dr. King fought for election integrity, but also Dr. King was nonviolent in his teachings. So when you look at Black Lives Matter and Antifa and the violence that they have perpetrated among the American people without being fully denounced by name by the Democratic Party, that further divides us. The impeachment is further dividing us. So we don't need that. You know, today I was out doing volunteer work for Hosea Williams, Feed the Hungry. And there are so many families coming through. I'm not talking about homeless families, but just families who have housing but short on food. When I look at Congress trying to impeach people, why aren't Congress down here looking at what people are dealing with now? They want jobs, they want opportunities, they're having some hard times right now. And a stimulus check is not going to be in all for all. We have to do more than that. So let's come together. Let's work together. Let's put all this rhetoric behind us and move forward.
Yeah, I want to discuss true equality because you heard MLK in many of his speeches talk about that. It's referenced now to this day, looking back at his speeches. And do you see true equality today, or do you still see, especially from the left, this sense of segregation because in their minds, and these I'm talking about are white liberals, is that you have to give certain things to the black community, but then that separates them, whether it be BET television or all black colleges or anything. I don't recall any speeches MLK talking about, okay, let's have true equality, and then by the way, then let's segregate again. It was supposed to be true equality for all. That was the message, right?
Well, the liberals, they want people to be on programs. They want the government to be responsible for them. Dr. King didn't ask for programs. Dr. King asked for jobs. Dr. King didn't want superiority. Dr. King wanted equality. He wanted those things to be like any other American so they can pursue the American dream as well. The liberals have hijacked Dr. King's message on so many different occasions. They think they have the market cornered on Dr. King, when in fact, Dr. King, I mentioned earlier, he was a conservative. He talked about traditional families. He talked about hard work. He talked about opportunities to be independent thinking. And so when you start to look where the Republican Party is now, and that's why I'm here bringing grand new ideas to the grand old party. I want the Republican Party to speak out and be more forward about Dr. King and his teachings too, because a lot of it is in line with the Republican Party and conservatism.
Yeah, it's interesting because several family members of King's family are Donald Trump supporters and conservatives. I've got to ask you this. We had on Dr. Carol Swain last week on the show, and I posed this question to her, and I want to get your take on it. And this goes to what the left's narrative that they've been spewing now for the past year or so, I think causing even more racial divide, and maybe not creating some, because it's always been there underlying, but making it bigger than it actually was. And she agreed with me on this point, and I want to get your take, Vernon. Do you think the narrative that the left pushes out in the corporate mainstream media, that this country is so divided every single where, there's so much racial injustice going on, does that match up in D.C. on the streets and the halls of where our elected leaders are living in their little bubble? I don't feel like it matches up with Main Street, because if you get online and you watch some local news, not the corporate media, you look at social media posts, you see Americans helping Americans. You see a white man helping a black man, a black woman helping a white woman, or whatever it may be, and a Christian trying to help an atheist. I don't think that it matches up on the Main Street of America that we're that far divided as the narrative they're spewing to keep us divided.
Well, helping people is not partisan. Helping people is about people helping people regardless of your background, where you come from, what you're doing.
Exactly.
That is not dependent on the government. That's us looking out for each other. That's how I was reared with my family, my conservative family. When I look at what's happening in Washington, though, politicians they've hijacked race, they've hijacked the black community, they've hijacked socialism, they've hijacked all these things that are taking America away from its traditional values. I want to say to Democrats, white liberal Democrats, stop feeling like you have the birthright to black people and blacks' minds and black people's voting status. You are not responsible for us. We do not need you to take care of us. What black people want is a fair opportunity. What black people want is to be able to compete. You know, when I think about the black community and how Democrats have treated us, if a black truly has independent thought, they go and get these agent provocateurs to attack them, to keep them on that plantation. This is real. This is no joke. I hear it every day. When in fact, black people have always been very conservative. I mean, conservative, even, believe it or not, when it came to pro-life. Now, you may not be ready for this, but, you know, it was those Democrats who had daughters who were their fathers and mothers were judges and lawyers and doctors. Where did they go to get the abortions from? They went to black women to perform abortions on white women. Black people were not performing abortions on black people. But why did those go? When you look at Planned Parenthood, when they put them in black communities, right, you had the white elite that was running over there to be hidden from their community to get an abortion. And so there's so much out there. And I'm not saying from a hatred standpoint. I'm not saying I'm pro-life or pro-choice. I'm just telling you how things have been, how things are, how we're forgetting how things are, how we need to re-educate ourselves so we can become woke. And, you know, I'm a fighter. I'm a marcher. When they say we fight, now they want to add as if it's violence. No. When I helped out to volunteer today, I was fighting for the American people. When teachers are buying school supplies for children, they're marching for the American people. When people are talking about voting integrity, they want voting integrity, they are marching for the American people. Marching and fighting, that's what we do. That's in line with that. It's not violent. It's standing up for what we believe in and doing something about it.
That's right, and that's a great message, and I truly believe that was the message that MLK was sending too. It was true equality through, at the ballot box, through your voice, through marching, but peaceful. And both sides need to remember that, because I think right now temperatures are so high and you've got fringe groups on both sides. And as we all know, what gets the most press, the most attention? The loudest voice in the room. So you've got this extreme left, this extreme right tearing apart the fabric of the country, because then you have the mainstream media and the left adding to the narrative that we are so divided, when I'll bet you, Vernon, just like you and me, brother, if we started talking, we'd find out we have a lot more in common than we do not in common. And that's the problem. We always want to talk about what divides us. And maybe on this day, let's talk about more about what unites us. Vernon Jones, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you coming on the program. By the way, we had your name on the bottom of the screen, and I saw a D still in front of it. We need to change that to R officially, right? You officially changed it. You're now a member of the Republican Party as of last week.
I am bringing a grand new party to the grand old party. I am officially a Republican.
Okay.
And please, your followers can catch me too at wakingupamerica.us, where I'm carrying this conservative message across the country and talking to young people and everybody who want to listen. So thank you so much for having me on. And we do have something in common. We're both great Americans.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. You stay safe, Vernon. Take care. We'll see you real soon.
Peace out.
Yep. Straight ahead, a disturbing video recently leaked online shows BLM activists and federal employees discussing how to take President Trump down. This was before the election. The video just got dropped a few weeks ago. Maybe you've seen it. We're going to discuss it with our friend, Brandon Tatum, from the Tatum Report. He'll break it down and just who kind of initiated it, and all the players you're about to see were in it. We're trying to identify them. But when you hear what they're discussing, you'll be disgusted, just like I was. Take a look.
Shut down DC about this. Do we have any plans for how to respond if there's a coup?
Yeah, we have been in discussion for a couple months about how to respond to different contested election scenarios. First step is that we think that we need to start the post-election phase in the streets.
You know, we may find ourselves in the streets with people with different tactics than ours, but like there may be some people that are willing to break the windows to get into the government buildings. Like, if that's what we need to do, then we shouldn't fight about that. Let's do that. Let's take over the buildings.
Text them, leak everything you can. The journalists I've dealt with have been super ethical in ways to shield me, to be the source of the leaks.
Groups on the outside being able to show solidarity with federal workers.
Making sure that we're naming what is happening as a coup.
Totally agreed in the shutdown DC conversations that I've been having, and that's not on the federal side. We also are often saying that call it a coup. It's a coup. Don't let anyone tell you it's not.
President Harry S. Truman famously said, "I thought I was the president, but when it comes to these bureaucrats, I can't do a damn thing." So the bottom line with this is that we all, as ordinary people and as federal workers, have power. If masses of people engage in non-cooperation, no ruler can stay in power. Bureaucracy is a really powerful pillar. And, you know, federal workers have unparalleled familiarity with the bureaucratic process. They know how to speed things up. They know how to slow them down. They have access to critical information about policies that are being considered and implemented. They can participate in internal decision-making. They can provide or deny knowledge and expertise that those at the top of the bureaucratic totem pole need. It ultimately comes down to individual decisions and personal choice. Deciding what to do or what not to do is a very personal decision. It's based on context. It's based on your rank, on your tolerance for risk, on your preparation, and frankly, where you sit in the federal bureaucracy. We're talking about the range of different tactics. We talk about acts of commission and acts of omission. And another act of commission, albeit highly, risky, and there are a number of great downsides, is leaking. So leaking information about pending or actual policies with journalists, with activists, influential people on the outside. So another act of commission is creating parallel structures or self-organizing units. So organizing in the office place, in the workplace.
As an attorney in the federal government, I am finding the chat suggestions very interesting, and I just do want to remind people that we lose our status as federal employees if we strike.
And there's been a little conversation going on here, for example, about Black Lives Matter and how that is an example of a nonpartisan political statement. I guess that's been previously litigated, but whether or not you do a misdemeanor or an infraction on federal property or on public property really doesn't affect most of the jobs that you would be considered for.
Yeah, okay. As an attorney, I think we're highly, that's one of the things we have to be careful about.
I would just say this is also the importance of being in communication with and in touch with groups, civic groups, grassroots groups that are preparing people for the possibility that red lines may be crossed, that the election goes sideways, so everything from choose democracy to hold the line, to shut down, we count on us. I listed a few of those in the slides earlier, but they're the ones who are really in the vanguard of helping people think about, interpret red lines, and think about different actions that can be taken well beyond kind of street protests and demonstrations, but kind of sustained organizing and action.
Joining me now, founder of the Tatum Report and former police officer Brandon Tatum. You posted that video. I did as well. I've watched it now 3 times. I listened to what they're saying, Brandon, from strategic goals of civic disobedience to if some in our group will break the windows of federal buildings, let's do that, to the media helping to shield them, leaking things out. These are federal employees talking about doing this crap, and we've seen it now happening over the past month in our country. What do you make of this?
Well, at first, when I first heard the garbage that was spewed on that Zoom call, I didn't think none of it. I thought it was a bunch of leftists. Then they turned around and said that they work for the federal government. I mean, you're talking about government employees. And I know that they have a manual that says that you cannot be partisan at all being a government employee, especially not on the clock. And it appears that these individuals who are completely careless, they do not take any sense of law and order seriously. They are going to go out and create chaos. They're leaking information. I mean, they're asking to go to prison. And I don't understand how our country is not making a bigger deal about this.
Who's going to send him to prison, though? Look who's in charge coming up in 2 days. Who's going to send him?
Right. People in charge now that probably should be in prison. And so it is interesting that if this was conservatives talking like this, even if they supported the president, I would be infuriated. I was a police officer and I had my political opinions. Not one time while I was on duty that I exercised my political opinions on the public. I'm impartial while I'm wearing a uniform and I'm working for the city of Tucson. Outside of that, I can have my opinions. But this is disgraceful, and I think something needs to be done, but I'm afraid that it probably won't happen.
I'm just disgusted that they were talking about thinking that, oh, we might have a coup or an insurrection coming from the right. They're discussing that. This is early December, and saying, if that happens, what should we do? And then you hear the one lady say, well, we've got to have people that are going to take tactics to the next level. And if that means breaking things, like breaking into buildings, windows knocked out, like we saw at the Capitol building, then we need to do that. We need to get actors within our group that will do that to stop it. So let's see what was happening inside. They were objecting to an electoral college vote. We now know there were for sure extremes from both left and right. Left, yes, we're there. I wonder if any of them were the ones breaking the windows and breaking into the Capitol building then. What do you think, Brandon?
I mean, definitely. We know that there are. The black gentleman that got arrested, I think his last name was Sullivan.
Yeah,
he got
former
arrested.
speed skater.
He is a black BLM supporter. He is clearly a leftist. He will say it. He's proud of it. And if you see somebody like that there getting arrested, imagine how many other people that were there. He wasn't by himself. He's high-fiving people. And there's a lot. I mean, we're not dumb. You know, we're grown-ups. We know what we see. And there's people from all sides involved in this. And you have a recording of people speaking that if the roles were reversed and President Trump was going to be elected, they considered that as the election going sideways, and they were willing to do more violence.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how they impeached the president over something that he said that didn't even come close to inciting violence, but yet people actually prepare, incite violence that are working for the federal government. We have senators, we have Congress people that are inciting violence, telling people to run up on individuals in the Capitol, to run up on people in the street, to push back against them.
Maxine Waters, Kamala Harris, they all said it. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me.
All of this that's happening right now in our country is absolutely insane to me. Brandon, I want to end the interview on a positive note. It is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Talk to me about, real briefly, the messaging you think that Dr. King was talking about back then that needs to be front and center on display today for Americans to truly understand, because they're using his name, his speeches, his messaging. Today, the left is, I think, in the wrong way. It's not what he stood for, which was true equality through peaceful demonstrations.
Right, and I think that the message that I would present is that God is in control and faith without works is dead. Martin Luther King exemplified that. He had his trust in God, but they did something about it. They didn't just talk. They didn't just spew rhetoric. He actually did things about it. And he was for civil disobedience. That means that in some cases, they broke the law. To go and do sit-ins, that was against the law for black people to sit there. To, when they were on the buses, Rosa Parks, and she sat where she shouldn't have sat, but they weren't violent.
Right.
And I think that there's a way for you to go out and protest and push back against some of these fake laws that they've put out without being violent.
Yep, and that goes for both the left and the right. If we want to heal this country,
no matter who you are,
exactly.
You're an American citizen.
Both
you don't have to be. You don't have to be violent, but you do have to take a stand.
You got it. TheTatumReport.com if you want to check out Brandon's articles and stuff. Man, we love having you on the show. Thank you so much for standing up, being a voice in the black conservative community, because I know it cannot be easy, right, for you? I'm sure.
That's right. We keep pushing, though. I love this country, and I'm a man of God, and I'm an American before anything else. So we'll keep pushing.
You got it. Service before self. Brandon Tatum, thanks for coming on the program, man. Coming up, wait until you hear the nonsense. Now, the effort has gained more than 1 million signatures, but get this. Democrats having none of it, and here's what they're doing. and this is just absolutely ridiculous. California Democrat Party has a press conference last week, okay? The chairman out in California, Rusty Hicks, then has some choice words about the recall movement, and you can see what they're doing. They're literally taking the narrative that the left is using from the attack on Capitol Hill, and they're just taking it, bringing it to California, and using the same adjectives, the same narrative to describe the people who are behind the recall, which the recall started way before the violence on the Hill, even before the summer of violence in our nation. This was to get rid of a governor who is not doing what's best for California. But let's go on to show you what it said. Sorry, guys, bring it back up. This recall effort, which really ought to be called the California coup, is led by, get this is what he says, right-wing conspiracy theorists, white nationalists, anti-vaxxers, and groups who encourage violence on our democratic institutions. The recall movement has nothing to do with any of those, okay? They're recalling him because of lack of leadership. Homelessness is rising. There's no affordable housing in the Golden State. The list goes on and on. The lockdown that's ruined millions of businesses. Yeah, that's why they're trying to recall this governor, not because it's a few guys behind the scenes that are, and I believe that article that Hicks wrote also called them armed insurrectionists. So literally just taking the playbook from the East Coast, transferring it to the West Coast. That's what the left does, folks. A spokesperson for the recall Newsom effort, Randy Economy, joining me now to discuss these absurd accusations. Randy, welcome back to the program. We'll discuss where you're at as far as numbers and money and deadline, but I got to get into this article. Were you not just so appalled and disgusted the minute you saw this DNC Hicks guy call you an armed insurrectionist? I believe, and I've known you for a bit of time, I don't think you've ever even owned a gun. Have you ever even picked a gun up?
You know, I had a BB gun when I was like,
oh, okay.
12.
Yeah, a little Red Ryder Ranger thing, whatever, when you were a kid.
Yeah. I was like, I had a 12-year-old. I was 12-year-old and had a BB gun. I actually like shot out my front window, so I was into my being armed days. But
can you believe this nonsense though? To try and tie you guys, there's a handful of you that are actually running the effort, right? There's Orrin, who've had on before, the head of the effort, yourself, and a couple other people. How does that make you feel when you're called an armed insurrectionist, a white nationalist, a Nazi?
You know, last time I checked, I'm a Roman Catholic who happens to be a member of the LGBT community, and I mean, I check so many different boxes that I can't even, you know, I can't grasp what my former party, the Democratic Party, actually stands for now.
Wow.
It's a sad day in California politics when they say that people who are doing a lawful recall of a governor, which has been tried, I think, 55 times, Dan, in the history of California, if I'm not mistaken. For them to go ahead and, you know, label us as being part of a militia and being part of an organized coup. And today we sent a cease and desist order to a letter basically to Rusty Hicks, who's the chairman of the party. I have it right here. And we said, listen, enough is enough. You're not going to be labeling us anything you want to, along with Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia and San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria. And others who were on that bizarre press conference they had last week.
Yeah, you're entitled to your opinions. You're not entitled to your facts. And the facts are, Orrin, the founder, yourself as a spokesperson, you guys are nowhere near what they're describing. And this is not a coup. This is because, and you can list them, what are the main reasons behind your effort to get rid of this governor? Throw them out there. I mean, the list is pretty big.
Well, you know, it's a lockdown. I mean, and it's not just one thing, Dan. It's everything Gavin Newsom's done since the day he rose his right hand and swore on the Bible on the other one. It's everything this man has done. He's shut down the 5th largest economy in the world in the name of this virus. And now, I mean, every single day, this man is obsessed. I'm so sick. Everybody's so tired of seeing this man on TV every day. Free airtime. I don't understand why the media gives this guy so much free airtime every day. He's on the air at least 1 or 2 hours a day. Free broadcast in the name of a pandemic. And again, I feel sorry for anybody who has lost loved ones during this situation. You know, it's a real virus. But again, it's the lunacy of Gavin Newsom, and it's the lunacy of the Democratic Party, who are on complete freak out mode right now to have to go ahead and hold press conferences. And you label their opponents as you know, extremists who are leading a coup.
Yeah,
and
I was
it's
just
not a coup. It's
I
a
saw
recall
that
campaign.
article when you sent it over, and I was so appalled. I wanted the rest of the nation to see this and see what in the heck is going on in the state of California, where you try to recall a governor because of homeless numbers rising. I mean, how many thousands of businesses before COVID were fleeing the state because of taxes, moving to Arizona, Nevada, Texas? You had gas prices. I mean, the cost of living. There's no affordable housing. California has been a mess before COVID, and these recall efforts, several of them that failed, started before the COVID lockdowns, the riots, and everything else. So to try and tie this to a coup, try to tie it to white nationalists, to arm insurrectionists, anyone with a brain and two eyeballs and two ears can go, oh, wow, they just took the words they used from the Capitol, and let's use them out here in California, and maybe they'll catch on.
Words
they have no shame.
Words matter. And when you're the chairman of the California Democratic Party, or you're the mayor of the city of Long Beach, or the mayor of the city of San Diego, or a county supervisor in San Diego who sat there or a councilman in Fresno who sat there and said, what you guys are doing is a coup and it's illegal, and on and on and on, they need to be held accountable. And if I was a member of the Democratic Party Executive Board, E-Board, I would really look hard at possibly replacing Rusty Hicks as his chair. He's out of control. He has baseless claims. He tries to do these bizarre label politics.
Yeah, well, he's out of touch, and he's off the reservation, whatever you want to call it. He literally is calling you guys insurrectionists.
Yeah, well, here's another thing, Dan. Let's do the 411 on this, as we like to say. More than 300,000 of the people who have signed our petition so far, breaking news, are Democrats. So that's about a little less than a third of our overall petition people.
And Randy, they're giving me the wrap up. I got to tell them where to sign that petition, because that's the key. Your deadline's coming up in what, March?
Yeah, March 17th.
March 17th. You need 1.495 million. You got almost 1.1 million. Glad to hear over 300,000 of those are Democrats. Where do they go? Real quick, 10 seconds if they want to sign that recall.
Recallgavin2020.com. There's you need to go ahead and download it. You need to physically sign the petition, and you need to stick it in the mail to the address that's listed there. And we will get it and put it in our mail center and send it to the right people, and we'll get your voice heard.
All righty, Randy Economy with the Recall Newsom effort out in California. Thank you so much, sir. From CNN over this past weekend, where our good old friend and mega fan of this network, Brian Stetler, I was interviewing a guy named Alex Stamos, who, oh, by the way, just happens to be the former chief security officer from Facebook. These two were discussing how networks like One America News need to pretty much be deplatformed, right? Removed from cable carriers and satellite providers, because they say we report on false information. And CNN never does that. In case you missed the interview, which hopefully you did because you weren't watching CNN, here's what these two hypocrites had to say.
Information crisis that has been perpetuated, in my view, by platforms like the one we're used to work, Facebook, as well as Twitter and others.
It's really hard, because what's happening is people are able to seek out the information that makes them feel good. That is what's happening, is that people have so much choice now. They can choose what their news sources are. They can choose what influencers they want to follow. And they can try to seal out anything that helps them question that. And I think that gets to a really core issue with how our freedoms as Americans and the way we've treated press freedom in the past is being abused by these actors, in that we have given a lot of leeway, both in the traditional media and on social media, to people to have a very broad range of political views. And it is now in the great economic interest of those individuals to become more and more radical. And I think that one of the places you can see this is on the fact that you now have competitors to Fox News on their right, OANN and Newsmax, which are carried by all the major cable networks, who are trying to now outflank Fox on the right, because the moment Fox introduced any kind of realism into their reporting, immediately a bunch of people chose to put themselves into a sealed ecosystem. And they can do that both on cable, they can do it online, and that becomes a huge challenge of figuring out how do you bring those people back into the mainstream of fact-based reporting and try to get us all back into the same consensual reality.
And can you? Is that possible? Seems like that's an open question.
It's hard. I mean, I think we got to do a couple things. One, there needs to be an intentional work by the social media companies collaborating together to work on violent extremism in the same way they worked on ISIS. When I started at Facebook in 2015, the #1 challenge from a content perspective was the abuse of social media by the Islamic State. And there was a collaboration between the tech companies and between the tech companies and law enforcement to make it impossible for them to use the internet to recruit and radicalize mostly young Muslim men at the time around the world. Now we're talking about domestic audience in the United States. And the challenge is going to be partially that, ISIS did not have a domestic constituency in the United States Congress. But there is over half of the Republicans in Congress voted to overturn the election. And there will be a continual political pressure on the companies to not take it seriously. So I think first, you have to focus on those violent extremists, and those companies have to be brave in that way. And second, we have to turn down the capability of these conservative influencers to reach these huge audiences. There are people on YouTube, for example, that have a larger audience than daytime CNN, and they are extremely radical and pushing extremely radical views. And so it's up to the Facebooks and YouTubes in particular to think about whether or not they want to be effectively cable networks for disinformation. And then we're going to have to figure out the OANN and Newsmax problem. That these companies have freedom of speech, but I'm not sure we need Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and such to be bringing them into tens of millions of homes. This is allowing people to seek out information if they really want to, but not pushing it into their faces, I think is where we're going to have to go here.
Where we're going to have to go here. This ass clown, I'm sorry, folks. If you get offended, watch a different show. This guy just compared the Republicans in our House of Representatives that stood up for election integrity to members of ISIS. He's talking about ISIS pages on Facebook back in the day and comparing them to conservative voices on Facebook. He wants to put pressure on AT&T, who owns DirecTV, you might be watching us through that satellite provider right now, to pull us from satellite television, from cable television. This is what's happening. So why did I show you that? We all know now, for the past few weeks, we've seen it. You can't deny it. Conservative voices online and pretty much everywhere else are under constant attack and are being silenced. So, this Get Real, I'm directing towards you, all of us. We all, as conservatives, need to get real with ourselves and take action. So what do I mean? Not violence, like the left thinks. Every time somebody says take action or fight, they think it's get in a fist fight. It's not what we mean. I mean, call your cable or your satellite provider. Tell them you want to keep channels like OAN. Demand it. You pay for it. You should receive the stations you want to watch. Go a step further. Start up pages on Facebook and Instagram. Get your friends, family members, neighbors involved. Push them to reach out to their providers and request that they either keep or add OAN to their program lineup. And don't stop there. Call and email your state and federal elected leaders. Let them know that you want conservative networks like OAN to be left alone. We cannot allow big tech, the corporate media giants like CNN, and the left-wing mob to silence our voices. And don't wait. Do it today. We have to be on the offense, not the defense, conservatives. These forces are working as we speak to stomp out any voice that opposes their radical leftist agenda. Free speech means free speech, period. Last time I checked, there isn't a little asterisk next to the line about free speech in the Bill of Rights, meaning you have it, unless the other side doesn't agree with it, or if you hurt their feelings. Well, sorry, feelings don't overrule facts. And while everyone